Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a beer, it's time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today I wanted to continue on with a series where I'm looking at a number of popular endgame unique items in Path of Exile and discussing how they're built around, how you might go about acquiring them, why they're popular, what makes them tick. And today I wanted to look at an item that has recently become popular again after a very long time where it was sort of a forgotten unique. And we're talking about Vols Devotion here. Vols Devotion, when it first came out, was about the time I started playing the game, like around 2013, and it was very popular early on. The reason for it, the reason that people use it, is because entirely of this last line: gain an endurance charge when you lose a power charge. This becomes one of the single best ways to bulk generate charges that exists in the game, especially given that power charges are one of the easiest of the types of charges to gain and also one of the easiest to spend. So let's break down Vols Devotion and what it does. Firstly, it's a negate amulet, and that means that it's got 24 to strength and intelligence. I'm just going to call that 24 because if you can afford this item, you can afford to bless it to perfection. Then it has an amount of energy, shield, and life on it, and some resist. All of these are basically about a half of what you could get on an amulet slot. So these are a little bonus. They're not terrible. They're better than them not being there, and they help make it a little bit easier to fit this item into your gear set. We have some drawbacks: reduced endurance charge and power charge duration. By default, these are 10 seconds. This brings them down to 7 seconds. Normally, this isn't a big deal. However, in conjunction with the unique item Farrell's Fur or Replica Farrell's Fur, and I do have videos for them, and you can look down in the description below and you'll find links to the Farrell's Fur and Replica Farrell's Fur episode of this series, looking at endgame unique items. In conjunction with those items, it is actually quite a pain to have the reduced duration. It does reduce your charge uptime considerably. That said, it's far from a massive drawback. It's very manageable. But then you have the key line: gain an endurance charge whenever you lose a power charge. How can you lose a power charge? You can spend it. You can spend it to fuel various skills. There's a number of skills that let you bypass a cooldown if you spend a power charge, or do things like that. You can also spend your power charge using Discharge, the skill, and we'll get to Discharge in a sec. That's the main reason that people do actually use Vols Devotion. And then there's a third way, and that is that your power charges can just expire from running out of duration. When that happens, you gain a new endurance charge. So, Discharge. Discharge is a massive self-centered explosion, and when you cast it, it detonates all the charges your character has built up. So power charges, frenzy charges, and endurance charges are all converted to a truly spectacular amount of damage. So you have a look at the numbers on Discharge. At gem level 20, you're dealing 692 to 1037 fire damage per endurance charge that you burn. So if you're burning up 3 endurance charges, that's in par with firing off 2 fireballs at level 20. And it's similar at lower skill levels as well, lowest gem levels as well. Where this really shines, though, is when you are detonating lots of charges and at the same time you are inflicting ignites on an enemy. And there's a really popular build that's been doing the rounds in this current league. It's from content creator This Is Badger. I'll put a link to it. It's not like it's some groundbreaking new build, but what This Is Badger has done is he's taken the pieces of various builds that have worked in the past and put them together in a really solid package that is definitely functional in the current endgame. And not just functional, it's incredibly good at killing bosses, and often even 1 or 2 shotting some of the real endgame bosses. So, what Vols Devotion does is it lets you spend your power charges. Remember that they're the easiest type of charge to generate again. And then when you do so, you gain a whole bunch of endurance charges. Those endurance charges explode. The other thing that's changed, though, that makes Vols Devotion better this league than it's been in the past is the new Elementalist allows you to gain a lot of benefit from dealing lightning, fire, and cold damage all at once. Because with Discharge that deals this sort of rainbow elemental damage, with the new Elementalist, all of that damage gets counted for ignites. It used to be that if you wanted to make the cold damage ignite from Discharge, you either needed to convert it to fire, which would cost you a ring slot plus a gem, or you needed to use the unique gloves Harimburn. And if you wanted to make the lightning damage count for your ignite, you needed to use the unique ring Stormfire. So there's quite a lot of hoops that you had to jump through in order to make all of this damage capable of igniting. But with the new Elementalist, it's all capable of igniting off the bat. No shenanigans required. So with all of that in mind, Discharge that you actually manually cast, so we're not looking at triggering it here usually, is capable of doing a lot of damage in conjunction with Vols Devotion, with Vols Devotion feeding you additional charges, and then various other class abilities feeding you additional power charges. And most of the builds that use Discharge are not necessarily all of them. Most of them largely ignore the possibility of scaling it further via frenzy charges, coming to the conclusion that this isn't worth the effort. Just let Vols Devotion feed you an almost unlimited supply of endurance charges, and then source your power charges through other means. So how do you actually source this powerful item? So the first thing that needs to be said is that Vols Devotion is legitimately very rare. Currently, it is a league-specific item, and the only way that you can get it as a natural drop is either as an awakening bonus for completing a map. So that means that you kill a map boss with your awakening level at least 1%, and there'll be at least at level 1, and there's an X% chance for the map boss to drop you a unique item. Then those unique items have a chance, just a sliver of a chance, of being a league exclusive unique item. And then if you do get one, chances are it'll be one of the more common league exclusive items like Beric's Grip or Talisaio's Sign. But if you're really lucky, you could get a Vols Devotion. So that's one way of getting them. More commonly though, you get it through divination cards. There is a divination card called Lysa's Respite, and I do not recommend this, but it is a possible source. This will give you a corrupted agate amulet, unique agate amulet, but unfortunately there's a couple of pretty common unique amulets that can come up with Lysa's Respite. So I'm mentioning this for the sake of completeness, not because I particularly recommend it. There's also a divination card called the Brittle Emperor. Now, this drops from the boss of the Wasteland map. The Wasteland map boss is based upon Voll that you encounter in Act 4. It can also drop from the Dried Lake, from Voll, the Emperor of Purity in the Dried Lake. However, again, this is a very rare divination card. Back in one past league, back when Vols Devotion was a super meta item the last time, the Brittle Emperor was estimated to be about a 1 in 400 drop rate from Voll in the campaign storyline, which is, I guess you would say now, the Act 4 Dried Lake version of him. And that's probably about the same probability of getting it from the map boss before any increased item quantity effects come in. I don't know how accurate that was, but from looking at some other statistics online as just to the number of these in circulation, I would estimate that it is somewhat rarer than the Abandoned Wealth Divination card, which is a set of 5 that gives you 3 Exalted Orbs, and slightly more common than the Nurse, which is effectively a set of 64 to get a Headhunter, although a set of 8 turns in for a divination card called the Doctor, which then is a set of 8 for a Headhunter. So with that in mind, expect the Brittle Emperor to be an absolute brutal grind if you want to farm it yourself. If you're playing in solo self-found, I recommend treating the item Vols Devotion as though it doesn't exist. You might get one through extreme luck, and if that happens, fantastic. The other places that you can get it though, and I think that this next one is a really important one to keep in mind, especially given that Badge of the Brotherhood is also a unique amulet that is also very good. There is a bestiary recipe where you can sacrifice a specific beast at the altar and be rewarded with a unique amulet. These unique amulets that come from the bestiary altar will bypass normal drop restrictions. You won't be able to target farm the specific beast for this, but you probably have a couple of them if you've been playing for a little while and running Einhar missions semi-often. And so it's worthwhile checking to see what Einhar beasts you've got. And if you've got the ability to create any unique amulets, then definitely do it. Best case scenario, you get a Badge of the Brotherhood. Second best case scenario, you get a Vols Devotion. More likely, you will get some much lower end unique amulets like Extractor Mentis, but it's worth trying anyway because it's basically a free roll on a chance at getting something really good. Anyway, if you're looking to pick up a Vols Devotion in the Trade League at the moment, you're looking about 3.5 exalts for one that is not corrupted, and about 2.5 exalts for one that is corrupted. You definitely want to get a non-corrupted one, even though it's going to cost you more, and that's because there's so much of the power of a unique amulet is in the ability to anoint it, and to really give your character a huge power boost from getting something that's not connected to your normal passive tree, but that has strong synergy with your build. There's also a number of potential nodes that you could take that will generate you additional charges, and these are absolutely incredible in conjunction with any build that is based around Vols Devotion. I'm going to leave it there though. If you've got any comments or questions, fire away below. If you're interested in checking out the rest of the series on Endgame unique items, there's also going to be a playlist that should be appearing just about now, I think in the top left corner of your screen. And that will provide you with a few more possible ideas for things to build around. This is one of the less solo self-found friendly ones, unfortunately, but some of the other uniques that are listed in the series are more SSF friendly.